If evil started with the serpent, Satan in the Garden of Eden, why was there killing amongst the animals before the garden, dinosaurs?
Oh.
If evil was not present yet.
Okay, this is that's a very good question. I just wrote an article on this topic that will be coming out in a book in the fall on science and theology. I forget the name of it now. But this is a topic, the whole issue about evolution to me is rather insignificant as long as a person is willing to grant that there's an intelligence guiding it. But the real issue of evolution to me is that. If there is this God guiding the evolutionary process, why is it so red in tooth and claw, as Tennyson says? I mean, you look at the history of it, and even in the nature today, it is really macabre. It's horrifying. I mean, some of the stuff that goes on there it's like wired to inflict maximal torture on other animals. It's just, I mean, some of it is like that. This bothered Darwin profoundly. It's what led him eventually, one of the things that led him eventually to abandon belief in a personal God. He says in one of his letters to one of his friends, he said, he talks about this one caterpillar that there's a certain wasp, starts with a Latin name, starts with an I forget what it is, that infects this caterpillar and plants its larvae inside of it. And then the larvae eats the caterpillar from the inside out and knows exactly what to eat, not to kill a caterpillar, to keep it alive, but while eating its intestines. And it lasts for a couple weeks. And then when the caterpillar finally dies, then the wasps are hatched. And Darwin was saying, you know what? If there's any design to this, it is a design by what he calls, if someone's going to write the history of evolution, it would be written by the Devil's Chaplain, he called it, the Devil's Chaplain. And then Dawkins wrote a book exploring this whole problem, and it's called the Devil's Chaplain, for those of you who want to look into this a little further. Okay, my response to it is this. When I look at the ministry of Jesus, and I've got good reasons for thinking he's the definitive revelation of God, he comes against sicknesses and diseases and all these other kind of afflictions as though they were, in fact, he says they were, and the gospel authors confirmed they were, not of God, they were of the devil. And the Bible refers to a lot of things in nature as being not the result of God's great, beautiful design, but rather the result of this world being afflicted by demonic powers. In fact, Hebrews 2:14 says that the devil is the one who holds the key to death. And Jesus Christ came to defeat the devil so that all of us who have feared death all of our lives could be freed from that fear. But now death is, as we look at the world, a very much of a natural process. It's part of the fabric of nature, and yet the Bible identifies that as being one of the corruptions of the principalities and powers. Nature as it now is corrupt. And so what I do is I take that principle, all the sicknesses and diseases that Jesus came against, they could have been diagnosed by simply natural laws, and there's reasons for it. We can explain it. Science could say, you don't need to appeal to the demons to explain why a person gets Parkinson's disease or any other disease. And yet the Bible says, well, there's something else going on. It's not that there's a demon behind every sickness and disease or whatever, but that the laws of nature as we now find them are corrupt. Apparently, the angels had some authority over nature when they were first created, just like we are given authority over things as we're created. And when we fall, the things over which we are responsible suffer accordingly. So also when the principalities and powers fall, rebel against God, things that are under them, under their responsibility, suffer accordingly. And that even affects nature as it is. And so what I argue in this essay is that we've got very good reasons, I think, once you grant that Jesus is who the Gospels say he is, for reading the history of evolution not as simply God doing what he wants to do, but rather as cosmic warfare. And the title of the essay is called Evolution as Cosmic Warfare. It's a matter of God overcoming evil with good. He moves, the enemy counter moves, corrupts the thing. So God says, okay, out of that I'll bring this. There's more, corruption. Out of that I'll bring this. The result is human beings. But that is a matter of God in his wisdom overcoming evil with good. And so the nature as we find it in the record and the nature that we find today is not simply a reflection of the good and gracious God. It to a large degree rather reflects the designs of a roaring lion seeking whom he may devour, which is exactly how the Bible describes Satan in 1 Peter chapter 5. Now we have to do some thinking around the Genesis 3 story. Actually, the Genesis 1 through 3 story. How do you integrate those things in it? And the last half of my paper is all on that. But why don't I come back to that next week if we're still interested in that, because we only have about 3 minutes left, and it would take me more than 3 minutes to do it. Or maybe you just got to go out and buy the article. Or, on my website, actually, if you want, on my website, just go gregboyd.org. I have a whole Q&A section there. I meant to mention this the first week. And I've got a couple hundred, questions that were asked, and I give answers to it. And I have a whole essay. I have a Q&A section and an essay section, and I have a whole essay section on my view of evil and suffering, pre-humanoid evil and suffering in the evolutionary process.